Who decides the rules of desire? Is it society, with its ever-shifting boundaries and hushed whispers of morality, or is it something ancient? Adultery. A sin not merely frowned upon, but furiously condemned by the scriptures. This isn't just about sneaking around or breaking hearts. It's about detonating lives. Why such severe disdain, you ask? Let's break it down mercilessly. Adultery. This isn't just a slip-up. It's an explosive rebellion against a sacred pact. Picture this. A vow made before the divine, witnessed by the heavens, shattered by mere mortal whims. Every illicit encounter is a slap in the face to the sanctity of marriage, a mockery of a covenant designed by the divine itself. And what's the fallout? More than just bruised egos and broken homes. We're talking about a moral earthquake, with aftershocks that devastate children and ripple through generations. Adultery doesn't just erode trust, it annihilates it. From a biblical angle, it's not merely discouraged, it's outright warfare against divine law. Thou shalt not commit adultery, clear, uncompromising, thundered down by God himself. To ignore this, it's to dance on the edge of divine retribution, to toy with fire destined to consume more than just the guilty parties. So here's the burning question. In our relentless pursuit of passion, are we tossing aside millennia of wisdom for fleeting thrills? Are we so arrogant to think we can rewrite rules etched by the divine hand without consequence? This is the brutal truth about adultery, a historical heavyweight of sin that tests not just our morals, but our very humanity. Let's unpack the divine disapproval surrounding adultery. The scriptures are crystal clear. This isn't just a social faux pas, but a direct defiance of divine law, risking both relational and spiritual fallout. Engaging in adultery isn't merely playing with fire, it's setting ablaze the very soul. In the divine playbook, every act of adultery is a rebellion, a direct affront to the Creator. It's as if each clandestine meeting, each secret tryst, is an open declaration of war against the cosmic order. But why such severe repercussions? Because this sin isn't just personal, it's cosmic. It disrupts the divine blueprint for human relationships, marring the sanctity of marriage crafted in the heavens. Think about it. The commandments aren't just ancient texts to be glossed over. They are the very words believed to be breathed out by the divine, etched into stone with the fire of a mountain that smoked and trembled. To break these is not just to err, but to spit in the face of God's authority. And the consequences. They're not just about the here and now, they echo into eternity. We're talking about a spiritual stain that can tarnish a soul, potentially barring gates that lead to divine peace. Adultery does more than just disrupt earthly laws. It gambles with eternal stakes. So when you step over this line, remember, you're not just crossing societal boundaries, you're crossing celestial ones. You're not just risking your marriage, you're risking your eternal standing. Is the fleeting thrill worth the eternal risk? Is a moment of passion worth a lifetime, perhaps an eternity, of fallout? These are the questions that adultery poses, stark and raw in the harsh light of divine scrutiny. Fornication. Turning our gaze now to fornication, we confront a sin often dismissed by modern mores, yet emphatically denounced in the scriptures. In today's hypersexualized society, where premarital intimacy is normalized and even celebrated, the Bible stands as a stark counterpoint, labeling it not just a faux pas, but a profound moral misstep. Why does the Bible take such a strong stance? It teaches that sexual intimacy holds a sanctity that is meant to be preserved for marriage, a covenantal relationship that creates a safe, sacred space for such connections. By engaging in premarital sex, individuals are seen as deviating from this divinely ordained path, tarnishing the purity meant to be brought into a marital bond. This isn't just about following a set of arbitrary rules. It's about adhering to a divine blueprint for human relationships that's designed to protect and elevate the human experience. When fornication enters the scene, it's seen as a corrosion of the soul's purity, a misalignment with the spiritual ideals laid out since the dawn of creation. Moreover, the act of fornication is depicted as a rebellion against the wisdom of millennia, a heedless step into the minefield of moral and emotional complexities. It's portrayed as undermining the very foundations of societal stability and personal sanctity. So, when Scripture calls out fornication as a moral misstep, it's not merely issuing a prohibition. It's sounding an alarm, a clarion call to preserve the integrity of one's soul and the societal fabric at large. It challenges each of us to consider the deeper implications of our choices, to weigh the fleeting pleasures of the moment against the enduring principles of spiritual and moral order. Each act of fornication is seen not just as a lapse in judgment, but as a stain upon the soul, diminishing one's spiritual integrity. This concept isn't just a poetic metaphor, but a profound declaration of the spiritual ramifications that follow such actions. In biblical terms, the soul is considered the seat of human emotions, desires, and spiritual connection. When one engages in fornication, the Scriptures suggest that this sacred vessel is tarnished, compromising the individual's relationship with the divine. It's like adding a drop of ink to a glass of clear water. Each act muddies the clarity, spreading until the original purity is obscured. This staining of the soul is significant because it represents a barrier to spiritual enlightenment and a close relationship with the divine. It's not just about the physical act, it's about how this act aligns with cosmic laws that govern spiritual health and harmony. The Bible warns that such stains are not easily washed away, and they accumulate, layer upon layer, with each indiscretion distancing the soul further from the divine light it seeks. Moreover, this spiritual stain affects more than just one's personal spiritual journey. It has ripple effects on the community and future relationships. Fornication can lead to a weakening of communal moral standards and disrupt the spiritual and emotional bonds that future marital relationships are supposed to build upon. So, when Scripture talks about avoiding fornication, it's not merely advocating for physical purity, but for spiritual resilience. The aim is to maintain a spiritual environment within oneself that is conducive to divine connection and moral clarity. This perspective forces us to question, how do we measure the impact of our actions not just on our physical reality, but also on our spiritual well-being? Are we nurturing our souls with our choices, or are we allowing them to be diminished by momentary desires? Homosexuality. On one side, contemporary society champions diversity and inclusion, advocating for the rights and recognition of LGBTQ+ individuals. This cultural shift towards acceptance contrasts sharply with traditional scriptural interpretations, where texts like Leviticus and Romans outline clear prohibitions against homosexual acts, positioning them as contrary to divine law. This confrontation isn't merely about differing opinions. It's a profound divergence in worldviews. The Bible doesn't just suggest a mild disapproval, but presents a stark condemnation, challenging the very fabric of modern inclusivity. Here, the Scriptures are not whispering. They are thundering a command, asserting a divine order that many find at odds with current human rights perspectives. In grappling with this issue, we must consider the broader implications. What does it mean to adhere to scriptural authority in an age that often prizes personal freedom above traditional morality? How do communities of faith reconcile these ancient decrees with a commitment to love and justice for all individuals? As this cultural clash continues, it provokes deep questions about the nature of divine commands and their place in a rapidly changing world. It asks us to weigh the values of compassion and inclusivity against the call to uphold what some view as sacred, unchangeable truths. Thus, the dialogue around homosexuality and scripture is not just about interpreting old texts, but about navigating the complex interplay of faith, ethics, and human rights in the 21st century. It challenges both believers and society at large to reflect on how we define morality, authority, and the essence of divine law. This debate extends beyond church halls and legal chambers. It permeates everyday interactions and the very lives of individuals grappling with their identity in light of their faith. It's a potent reminder that the questions we wrestle with are not just theoretical, but deeply personal, affecting countless lives across the globe. Heavenly mandates, the scriptural directives that many believe define the boundaries of acceptable behavior. These mandates are not mere guidelines. They are perceived as divine laws, intended to shape not just behavior, but the very essence of societal and moral structures. In the scriptures, the mandates concerning homosexuality are stark and unambiguous. Texts like Leviticus label homosexual acts as an abomination, a term that carries profound theological weight. Similarly, the New Testament, particularly in writings like those of Apostle Paul in Romans, reiterates this stance, framing such behaviors as contrary to the natural order established by God. The use of such strong language indicates the seriousness with which these texts address the issue. This is not simply a matter of personal sin, but a question of cosmic order and divine will. For those who adhere strictly to these texts, obeying these mandates is not just a personal choice, but a crucial aspect of their faithfulness to God. This brings us to a critical point of reflection. How do believers navigate these heavenly mandates in a world that increasingly views them as relics of a less enlightened past? How do they uphold their faith without alienating themselves from the society that surrounds them? Moreover, the challenge extends beyond personal or communal adherence to these laws. It involves engaging in meaningful dialogues that respect both the deeply held beliefs of religious communities and the lived experiences of LGBTQ+ individuals. It requires a delicate balance, a dance between tradition and transformation, where questions of interpretation, mercy, and justice come to the forefront. In this heated debate, it's essential to recognize that the discussion is not about winning arguments, but about seeking understanding and finding ways to live together respectfully and compassionately. It invites us to look beyond the black and white print of ancient texts to the nuanced realities of human lives, encouraging a dialogue that is informed by both faith and empathy. Prostitution. The Bible categorically reduces the divine gift of intimacy to a mere transaction when it comes to prostitution, thereby undermining the inherent value of human connection. This act is not merely a commercial exchange, it's seen as a desecration of the virtue meant to be cherished within the sanctity of a committed relationship. Why is such importance placed on this virtue? Because, in the biblical view, sexual intimacy is not just a physical act, but a profound expression of love, trust, and mutual respect. It's intended to be a symbol of union, a sacred covenant that binds two souls in mutual fidelity and affection. Prostitution strips this act of its divine significance, reducing it to a commodity to be bought and sold. This commodification of intimacy challenges the very fabric of societal morals and personal sanctity. It not only devalues the individuals involved, but sends ripples through the community, altering perceptions of love, sex, and commitment. In the scriptural narrative, the body is often referred to as a temple, a sacred space that should not be defiled by mercantile interests. Prostitution, therefore, is portrayed not just as a moral failing, but as an affront to the temple of the human spirit. Moreover, the scriptures argue that engaging in or condoning prostitution corrodes the moral compass, fostering a culture where the sacred can be traded for the profane. This degradation of moral values is seen as a slippery slope, leading individuals and societies away from divine principles toward a more transactional, less meaningful existence. In addressing prostitution, the Bible calls for a restoration of virtue, urging societies to elevate the divine over the mundane, the eternal over the ephemeral. It challenges us to view each human interaction, especially those involving such intimate exchanges, as opportunities to honor rather than degrade the sacred essence imbued in us. Thus, as we delve into this issue, let's consider the broader implications of reducing sacred acts to transactions. How does this affect our view of human worth? How does it impact our ability to form genuine, loving relationships? These are critical questions as we seek to understand the profound depth of what's at stake when virtue is sold on the market of vice. This exploration of prostitution as a value of virtue not only criticizes its impact on individual and societal levels, but also invites viewers to reflect on the broader ethical and spiritual consequences of commodifying intimate human connections. Engaging in or supporting prostitution is not merely seen as a breach of societal norms, but as a fundamental subversion of sacred values, effectively turning the profound gift of love into a mere commodity. This transformation of something sacred into something saleable represents a profound distortion of the values enshrined in Scripture. Love, intended to be a free, selfless, and deep connection between individuals, is reduced to a transaction stripped of its emotional and spiritual dimensions. This is not just a subversion of individual values, but an erosion of the communal moral fabric that holds societies together. In the biblical context, every instance of prostitution is viewed as an act of defiance against the divine design for human relationships. The Scriptures are filled with admonitions against such practices, not only because they degrade those involved, but because they undermine the very principles upon which righteous societies are built. It's portrayed as corrupting the divine image in humanity, treating people as objects rather than beings created in the image of God. Rape. Rape is depicted not merely as a physical assault, but as a violent violation of both divine and human law, an act of profound evil. This depiction highlights the severity with which such actions are viewed within the biblical context, underscoring the deep moral and ethical implications associated with it. The violation goes beyond the physical harm inflicted. It pierces the very sanctity of the individual. According to Scripture, each person is created in the image of the divine, endowed with inherent dignity and worth. Rape, in this view, is not only an attack on the individual, but an affront to their divine image, an attempt to destroy the essence of God's creation. In the biblical narrative, this act is so grievous that it demands not only severe societal censure, but divine retribution. It's seen as an unraveling of the social fabric, an act that degrades humanity and distorts the divine plan for human relations. The law provided in the Scriptures, particularly in the Old Testament, sets forth strict penalties for such crimes, reflecting the seriousness with which they are regarded. Moreover, the emotional and spiritual fallout from such an act is profound. The Scriptures acknowledge the deep scars left on the victim, scars that can alter the course of a life and which require not only justice, but deep compassion and healing. The community's role, therefore, extends beyond mere punishment of the perpetrator. It includes the restoration of the victim's dignity and the reaffirmation of their value in the eyes of both society and the divine. This portrayal of rape as a violent violation serves as a stark reminder of the protective stance Scripture takes towards the vulnerable and the violated. It calls upon all who adhere to these texts to not only condemn such acts, but to actively work towards a community where such violations are unthinkable. As we reflect on this grave sin, let's consider our own roles in fostering a society that upholds the dignity of every individual. How do we respond to such violations? Do we offer support and solidarity to those affected, or do we turn a blind eye? The challenge here is not only to stand against evil, but to stand for healing and restoration in its aftermath. This act destroys personal dignity and safety and is profoundly condemned within the biblical narrative. The scriptures treat this not just as a physical assault, but as an obliteration of the victim's inherent sanctity and worth. Dignity, in the biblical sense, is not merely a social concept, but a spiritual attribute bestowed by God upon creation. Every human being is endowed with dignity as a bearer of the divine image. Rape, therefore, is seen as a direct assault on this divine image, a desecration of the sanctity that each person holds. It strips the victim not only of physical security, but of their spiritual and emotional armor, leaving deep, lasting wounds. This degradation goes beyond the individual to affect the community at large. When such acts are committed, it signals a breakdown in the moral order that is supposed to protect and uphold the dignity of all individuals. The Bible calls for a community response that upholds justice and seeks restoration for those whose dignity has been violated. It implores societies to not just punish the wrongdoer, but to actively work towards healing the breaches caused by such profound violations. Moreover, the destruction of dignity through rape is not something that can be easily restored. It requires time, compassion, and a concerted effort by both individuals and communities to reaffirm the worth and sanctity of the affected persons. The biblical narrative encourages a path of healing that involves not only legal and social remedies, but also spiritual and communal support to restore what has been lost. In discussing this topic, it is crucial to approach with sensitivity and a deep sense of responsibility towards the restoration of dignity. It's about more than condemnation, it's about contribution to healing. Each of us holds the potential to be a part of the healing process, whether through direct support, advocacy for justice, or fostering an environment where such acts are unthinkable. As we reflect on the destruction of dignity caused by rape, let us be motivated not only by a sense of outrage, but by a commitment to action. How do we, as individuals and communities, respond to such violations? Are we prepared to stand in solidarity with those who have been hurt and work tirelessly towards a world where dignity is unassailable? Turning now to the sin of incest, we confront an issue that is scripturally forbidden and widely regarded with taboo across various cultures. This prohibition is not only a matter of moral repugnance, but is also deeply embedded in what might be termed genetic governance. Incest is seen as a corruption of family ties and a violation of the sanctity of genetics that underpin the familial structure designed by divine ordinance. The scriptures are explicit in their governance of familial relations, outlining specific prohibitions that preserve the integrity of the family unit. Texts like Leviticus detail the relationships that are off-limits, emphasizing the importance of maintaining clear boundaries within family lines. These laws serve a dual purpose. They protect family members from exploitation and prevent the genetic complications that can arise from too close biological relations. From a biblical perspective, incest does more than blur the lines of familial roles. It disrupts the foundational structure of society as ordained by God. Families are meant to be safe havens, places of unconditional love and support, not arenas of sexual confusion and moral conflict. By corrupting these lines, incest not only harms individuals, but destabilizes the broader social order, sowing discord and degradation at the most fundamental level. Furthermore, the prohibition against incest is framed as a safeguard against the corruption of the human gene pool. The genetic governance implied by these scriptural laws reflects a deep understanding of the need to maintain genetic diversity and health, which are compromised when close relatives enter into sexual relationships. This biological wisdom, encoded in religious law, underscores the interconnectedness of spiritual, moral, and physical health. Thus, the scriptural stance on incest is clear. It is a profound transgression that undermines both the moral and genetic fabric of society. It's treated not merely as an individual sin, but as a communal threat, one that requires strict boundaries and serious consequences to prevent. As we consider the gravity of this sin, let's reflect on the broader implications of maintaining sacred boundaries within family relationships. How do these laws reflect a divine wisdom that encompasses moral, spiritual, and biological realms? How do they protect individuals and society from the potential chaos that can ensue from breaking these fundamental rules? The laws laid down in Leviticus are unequivocal, setting a clear framework designed to protect family purity and prevent both biological and moral degradation. These divine laws serve not just as prohibitions, but as protective barriers, ensuring the sanctity and health of family dynamics. The Book of Leviticus, often cited for its detailed prescriptions for ancient Israelite conduct, outlines specific forbidden relationships, making it clear that such boundaries are not merely suggestive, but mandatory. These decrees are grounded in a vision of community health that integrates moral, spiritual, and physical dimensions. By strictly forbidding incestuous relationships, these laws seek to uphold a societal structure that values clear and respectful familial roles. Why are these decrees so stringent? From a divine viewpoint, the family is the foundational unit of society, a microcosm of the larger community. Any corruption within the family is seen as a potential threat to the community's overall moral and spiritual health. Thus, the sanctity of the family must be vigorously defended, not just for the good of the individuals involved, but for the welfare of society at large. Furthermore, these divine decrees underscore a profound respect for the order of creation. Incest disrupts this order, leading to biological repercussions that can extend across generations, affecting not just the immediate family, but future descendants as well. The emphasis on preventing biological degradation through these laws reveals a divine foresight into the complexities of human genetics and health, long before modern science provided a deeper understanding of these issues. The strictness of these laws also reflects a broader theological principle, that purity and holiness are to be maintained at all costs, and that the community must be protected from any form of internal decay. This is not just about physical health, but about maintaining a spiritual environment conducive to the flourishing of all community members. As we reflect on these divine decrees, let's consider their relevance in our contemporary context. How do these ancient laws inform our understanding of family and community integrity today? How do they challenge us to think about the boundaries we set and the way we protect the most vulnerable among us?
Bestiality. Next, we confront the sin of bestiality, which is categorically presented in the scriptures as an aberration, a disturbing departure from both natural law and divine order. This act is not merely a taboo, but is viewed as a profound violation of the natural relationships established by God. Why is bestiality so severely condemned? From a biblical perspective, every creature has its place within the created order, and the relationships between species are meant to reflect divine intentions for harmony and propriety. Human beings are given a special role within this order, tasked with stewardship over animals, not exploitation of them. Bestiality violates this stewardship, crossing boundaries that are set to maintain the sanctity and proper functioning of all living beings. The prohibition against bestiality extends beyond moral disgust. It is rooted in a theological framework that sees such acts as a corruption of the divine image in humans. Humans, created in the image of God, are meant to live in accordance with divine will, reflecting God's holiness and wisdom. Engaging in bestiality is seen as a denial of this divine image, an act that degrades the human participant and disregards the order of creation. Moreover, this sin is not just about individual moral failure. It disrupts the wider cosmic order. It represents a rebellion against the laws of nature as established at creation, laws that are meant to govern the relationships and interactions between all forms of life. By deviating from these laws, individuals not only harm themselves spiritually, but also